uncertainty is overrated. There is a gift when you're faced with the unknown. And instead of seeing that as a catastrophe or the devastation of all your dreams and hopes, it actually is an opportunity to lean in with wonder and curiosity. And so I would say embrace uncertainty. I do so many things without fully knowing the outcome, but as we take that first step, the next steps often reveal themselves.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Measuring Post, a place where we actually measure what matters. And today I've got a phenomenal guest, somebody that I'm really excited to share with you because of the amazing work she's doing out in the world. Her name is Shannon Fernando-Rubera, and she is a global humanitarian, a family nurse practitioner, a TEDx speaker, and also the founder and CEO of Alabaster International, which is an organization that's advancing community-led solutions in some of the world's most remote, underserved, and conflict-afflicted regions. And she is doing this amazing work since 2012. I'm not going to get into all the details because I would love for her to share it. But with that in mind, Shannon, how are you? Welcome to The Measuring Post.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. So nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you calling from today?
I'm currently in Burbank, California, so local in United States currently. Yeah.
And the reason I mention that is because we're going to talk about the work you do all around the globe. So It's really exciting to see what you've been working on. And honestly, I'm truly amazed at the work you do because it's something that's not often talked about, and it truly is an underserved community. So before we get into what Alabaster International is, tell me a little bit about, becoming a nurse practitioner, and then really what led you to Africa, where you started a lot of this work. Was you were applying to med schools and not getting accepted. So you decided to take your skills on the road, for lack of a better term. So start me from the beginning. Tell me what decided to make you want to get into medicine.
Yeah, thanks so much. So really, my journey begins when I was a young child. I'd always wanted to be in healthcare, always felt called to being in medicine, caring for patients. I remember having the little kittens in the backyard of Sri Lanka where I was born. And I would practice listening to their heart and lungs with my little toy stethoscope. And so I still have that memory since I was like about 4 or 5 years old. And so that's really where my love for healthcare begins. And did all the steps you're supposed to do pre-medicine and took the MCAT. And was really just devastated when I didn't get into the 13 medical schools I applied to, because I thought that was the way I was going to further my career in healthcare and really care for those on the margins through medicine. And it was actually in that moment that I had a decision to make, whether I could reapply or actually go to Africa, which I'd always wanted to go to, and really learn from and really understand, okay, what am I really called to, and what is my why behind the healthcare career? And it was there that I fell in love with Kenya, was where I lived, and decided at that point that I felt called to start Alabaster International and come back and become a nurse practitioner, an advanced practice nurse, and really pursue healthcare in that way with a really proximate hands and feet on the ground way of caring for patients.
Yeah, and truly feet and hands on the ground. We'll get into some of the work that you actually do, but I have a couple of questions. Were you applying for med school here in the U.S. or back in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, no, so I actually moved here to Sri Lanka, from Sri Lanka to the United States when I was about 9. So I've been here most of my life. And so, yes, I applied here. I went to undergrad here and applied to medical schools all throughout the U.S. at the time.
And I'm a big proponent and a big believer that things happen the way that they're supposed to happen.
Yes.
And for example, if you were maybe to have been accepted into one of those medical schools, Alabaster International doesn't exist. You don't go to Kenya. None of this work gets done that you're out there spreading this good-natured will and work onto the world. So was there a specific reason why you didn't get accepted, or is it just, hey, we're not interested, and just kind of move on? And
Yeah, it's a good question. I honestly feel like, to your point, that it was part of my story and part of who I'm supposed to be, and really it led me to my ultimate calling, which is nursing and doing this work through Alabaster International. I think it was a combination of potentially my MCAT scores not being maybe up to par at the time. This was back in 2007, so long time ago. And also just the sense that I think my heart was not fully in it, even though I wanted it to be. I think there was something else missing that couldn't yet put my finger on, and it was actually in Kenya that I rediscovered that part of the really the heart and the why of why I wanted to do healthcare.
Yeah, I love that your heart was always drawn to helping people. That's such a gift because a lot of people don't have that. I like to be a helper of sorts, but I don't have the patience or the skill set to do what you do. So I truly appreciate healthcare workers and people that just have that really giving nature and spirit. But I have to ask, you're doing medicine in the States from Sri Lanka. Most people don't say, well, I didn't make it into med school. Let's go to Kenya. So what was sort of the thought process, and how did, A turn to B, turn to a plane over to Africa?
Yeah, so I don't remember when this movie came out, but Hotel Rwanda, when it did come out, it was a John Cheadle. It's a pretty old movie. I remember watching that, and there's one scene where the European and U.S. and Western folks are being evacuated, and the African people who are now left to deal with this war is essentially they are left to kind of fend for themselves in this scene in this movie. And there was something about that I felt so disturbed by, and also like, okay, I want to be part of the people that are left behind. I want to be the people that are stay on the ground and serve and care for communities. And so that was something where I first learned about Africa and some of the incredible and difficult and challenging things the continent and different countries have gone through. And it was there that really sparked my interest in doing work in Africa. And then I had this opportunity to go to Kenya in 2007, right after the rejections. And I just jumped on it with a friend of mine, and we went together to live amongst communities in Kenya. And it was really there where everything solidified, and I realized, oh yeah, this is where I'm meant to be in doing work on the ground through healthcare and serving those on the margins.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it organically played out for you to get there. But I love just hearing some of your backstory that we've discussed before this interview, where you talk about living inside the community, not as an outsider, but as a patient and as an observer of the community,
Mm.
and really sort of embracing their heritage, their culture, and allowing it to become part of who you are. So was there like a big culture shock? I mean, obviously coming from Sri Lanka, then to the US, then to Kenya, that's a pretty wide range of cultural stimulus. So was it a big culture shock when you got there, or did it naturally feel just like a good fit?
I think for any time you go into a new community, there's always an appropriate level of curiosity and also even caution, I would say, in terms of ensuring you're culturally aligned and culturally humble, and making sure you're open to the community and their traditions. So I think there was definitely a sense of like, I'm in a new place and I'm a learner. I am a listener. I'm not coming in with a fixed agenda. I'm coming in as with a posture of I'm a novice here, and I'm here to serve and also walk alongside and learn from community. So in that way, I think there was a bit of a shock, so to speak, in that I had to come out of my own comfort zone and what I'm familiar with to really adapt and assimilate and learn from communities on the ground. And I think that lesson is carried into the work we do at Alabaster now, for sure.
Yeah. No, I love the story on that. And you got there in 2007, but Alabaster International doesn't start till 2012. So you got this 5-year time frame where you're in Kenya the whole time, or are you kind of back and forth? I know a lot of the work you do now is also in Ethiopia, South Sudan,
Yeah.
and even parts of South Asia, with
Mhm.
Sri Lanka being over there as well.
Yeah.
So did you spend that whole 5 years in Kenya? Because obviously you came back at some point to get your medical practitioners. degree, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I actually stayed in Kenya for about 3 months. And after that, came back and immediately went back into nursing school because I had already had a bachelor's degree that I'd gone through and prepped for med school, but then decided to take the nursing track. So that was a whole other bachelor's degree I had to get, and then a master's degree in to be a nurse practitioner. So in those 5 years, that's really what I came back and focused on, while also quietly having this dream of building Alabaster and putting the pieces in place. And then in 2012, launched Alabaster Mobile Clinic at the time. Actually, that was the name. We were focused on healthcare only and only in Kenya. So we went back to Kenya to continue the work that I learned about and started in 2007.
And I love the natural evolution of Alabaster International since then, because you really focus on four core pillars, which I'll get to in just a moment. But you started as the mobile clinic, essentially like you were going out into these communities and bringing doctors, nurses, healthcare, medicine to them where they were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of the initial dream of that. What inspired the go back to Kenya? So you were there for 3 months, which if you look at the big picture, that's a relatively small amount of time.
Yeah.
So you could have done this in Sri Lanka, where you're from. You could have picked any other place, but it sounds like Kenya just grabbed your heart from day one.
For sure. We lived amongst the community, so we didn't live in a hotel somewhere outside of town and then took a bus or we really lived in Kibera, which at the time was one of the largest informal settlements in Africa. And the community really embraced myself and my friend and really took us in. And I really fell in love with the women there, especially. And one of the reasons our work is so focused on women is because of what I learned from when I was in Kenya, living in Kibera at the time. And that really formed and shaped who I am as a person, and also then the outpouring of that, which is the work that we get to do. And then they and the other women we work with really shape our work in a continual way.
Yeah, I love it. And it's great that you were able to take something from that community and then it inspired you to come back and give something to this community. I mean, that's a true two-way highway of the way that life is supposed to be. And you take care of the people that take care of you. So I love that you're living and breathing that. And I also really enjoy learning about Alabaster International because as it does focus on healthcare, there's three other pillars that you've sort of grown into as well,
Mm-hmm.
including food sovereignty. So you're making sure that people have enough food for them. And we'll talk about some of the growth and work you're doing, including NSET,
Yeah.
which is the Tree Against Hunger, which I had to look it up. I had no idea what that was. But the other pillars you focus on, as you mentioned, women's entrepreneurship, as you really grew to know and appreciate those women, and then also education, which is
Mm-hmm.
obviously most valuable piece of this. So tell me how you rounded out those four pillars and decided that those were the ones you would focus on.
Again, great. Thank you for that. Great question. I think really out of the work that started in Kenya, and we were only in Kenya for many years actually, and started to branch out into the other countries you mentioned in 2020 onward. And that's actually when we changed our name from Alabaster Mobile Clinic to Alabaster International to really reflect that we were broadening our scope and geographically, but also scope, adding in these other three pillars. Again, all of our work is really born from what we see on the ground, the stories we witness, the needs of the communities that we get to learn about. And so as we were working particularly with Indigenous women throughout Africa, we noticed that if you empower a woman, you empower the entire community. They are the gatekeepers of nutrition, of nurturing, of economic empowerment in the communities often. And so we learned quickly that focusing on women impacts the entire family, men and children and the rest. And so that's really been key to our work. And so that's where the female entrepreneurship idea came out of, was we can help get women healthy, but if they don't have a means of earning and caring for their families, they're still not whole. And the idea of this holistic way of looking at communities and women and families is so critical to the work. And so the female entrepreneurship was born out of this idea that livelihoods are so important. And then we started seeing the impacts of the pandemic actually on the nutrition of families. And in addition to climate change and global warming, all of that fueling more drought and failed rainy seasons. And that is why we decided to actually focus on food security, because again, you can treat malnutrition through medication, right, and supplements. But if you can also provide a sustainable source of food that communities can grow for themselves, not just focusing on waiting on short-term aid, then that really truly empowers communities to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient in the long run. And so that's where the other two pillars came to be. And then, of course, finally, education. Whenever we work with women, the first thing they'll ask is help our children, help the children in our community. And so the education piece came out of the women actually saying to us, we want our children to go to school. We want them to learn. We want them to have access to books and libraries. And that's where that was came out of as well.
Yeah, and it's something we take for granted in a lot of the westernized countries and nations in the world. It's because it's just so commonplace. You don't think about these local villages that don't have those resources, whether it's food or access to businesses or access to education and medication. So really the work you're doing is extraordinarily profound and really, really important that a lot of people overlook. But I had to dig in a little deeper to the food security thing, because when I heard that you guys were helping them grow this crop, it's called onset, ENSET.
Yep.
I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, you said it
right.
And
it's the tree against hunger, which is a drought-resistant, nutrient-dense crop. So how did you find this? How do you grow this? Where did that all come from? Or I'm assuming just from your studies and research along the way.
Really, it came out of this desperation when we started seeing the impacts of hunger on communities, particularly when we were working in Kenya, but even other parts of Africa. Of course, South Sudan, one of the hungriest nations in the world currently. And we really wanted to look at, okay, are there crops that are underutilized or overlooked? Are there indigenous crops that potentially farmers have been farming for generations that we just haven't looked at, that that are withstanding the test of time, really, in terms of the evolving weather and the failed rain seasons and all those different climate shocks that we see communities going through? And it really just led us to research indigenous crops that communities could grow. And that's how we happened upon NSET. There was a BBC article about it, actually, calling it the tree against hunger, and how it's this indigenous underutilized crop that's grown in Ethiopia and is a staple food for 20 million people there, and can be the potential answer to hunger in many parts of Africa. And there's been some emerging research about it, but it was still pretty unknown at that time. This was in 2022 when we first happened upon it. And that really began a process of really going to the local experts in Ethiopia and reaching out to them just via email, honestly, and getting connected with a local university there called Armament University, and the amazing people that guard and care for this crop. And we got to go and see NSET for the first time and learn about it. It's farmed exclusively by women. So that's a great part of the work that aligns so well with our work. And we just learned right there, then and there, that these farmers have been buffered from hunger even during the 1980s famine in Ethiopia. NSET growing communities were really, really safeguarded because of growing NSET. It's such a prolific crop. And so it really started this desire enough to say, okay, if this can be an answer to communities in Ethiopia, why not other places in Africa, maybe even places in Kenya that we are seeing the impact of hunger? And through a series of incredible, miraculous events, as well as amazing partnerships and connections between local agencies, we were able to get the Ethiopian government to release NSET for the first time in history to their Kenyan counterparts. And now the crop is growing in both nations. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, I'm here with Shannon Fernando-Rubera. She is the founder of Alabaster International. She's not only an amazing nurse practitioner, she's a world traveler, a humanitarian, and now we can add cultural ambassador, because you're brokering deals between countries now. And that is so cool that you were able to convince a neighboring country that maybe wouldn't have done it on their own. And to be a part of something that powerful and significant really has to feel like an amazing accomplishment. And truly it is. So that's an amazing thing that you did. for an entire set of communities and tribes and villages in a place that didn't have access to that.
Mm.
And luckily, it just happened to also fit your narrative of kind of women first doing the work and building this crop. So, really amazing work. I know that you've also been recognized by the Clinton Global Initiative. So, this isn't just you getting to pat yourself on the back or me do it for you. Major organizations have recognized your work. So, tell me a little bit about that recognition you received from the Clinton Global Initiative.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And definitely want to start by shouting out the incredible people around me that made this possible. I mean, it was definitely not a one-woman show. The researchers and academics in Ethiopia, the government folks that we worked with there, the NGOs in Kenya that helped as well. I mean, it's been such a team effort. And of course, most importantly, the farmers on the ground in Ethiopia that said yes, that said, hey, yes, we will share this crop. And the Kenyan farmers who are willing to learn about it. So it's really taken a village, like they say. And we're so grateful to Clinton Global Initiative for recognizing the work and recognizing this cross-border partnership. We were named a commitment maker in 2024, and we got to share about this NSET work on a global stage. And it's led to some great partnerships, enabling us actually to launch the first ever mobile app on NSET farming that's now being utilized in communities in Ethiopia by women farmers there. And then in 2025, we were recognized again by the Clinton Global Initiative for our NSET work, looking at NSET agroforestry. So combining NSET with other crops to really promote biodiverse crop systems for food security and climate resilience. So we're really grateful to them and all of the amazing visibility they've given us in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's well deserved between you and your team and the groups that you're working with. But I like that, part of your internal philosophy, from my understanding, there's a couple of things that I really like that you've said is one, communities are partners, not victims that need to be saved.
Mm,
And essentially, we can learn from these communities, we can help each other. They don't need, a knight in shining armor to come save them. Instead, sometimes they just need resources and things that can help them get, started in that. But what I really like, which is what I see you do in your daily work, is that the most effective solutions are not imported.
mm,
They already exist within those communities. And this is a perfect example of that, whether it's the country next door or the city next door, the town next door. You were able to sort of make this happen.
mm.
And I love that you're sort of humanizing these cultures instead of making it seem like they need us to come in America or Western Europe to come
Yeah.
save them. They don't. They have what they need. They just sometimes need maybe a little boost, a little extra resource, or
Mm.
just the ability to gather what they need. So, what's your internal philosophy on that, and how does that play out in your work daily?
I think for us, it starts by recognizing the innate dignity and strength and resilience of the people that we get to learn from and walk alongside. And the fact that we come in as listeners and partners and not as people with this top-down agenda. So much can get done in communities, and real change happens when we do so as equal partners, not when we reinforce familiar power dynamics and structures. And for even with the NSET story, when I approached the Ethiopian government, of course, with all the partners involved on the ground, I came in as a listener and a novice. I mean, have been the ones guarding this crop. They know what the needs of their farmers and their people. And I think it was that posture that enabled us to have these conversations that led to this breakthrough, because we came in with this understanding that they are the experts of their own story. We're not the experts. And honoring story, honoring tradition, honoring culture is actually what can move the needle, so that there's permission and proximity. And I think those two things, permission and proximity, have been really the core parts of our internal philosophy and my personal internal philosophy as we move and I lead Alabaster as an organization. This idea that we can't learn from a distance. We actually have to come and be on the ground and be immersed in culture, in the ways of being of people, to be able to actually learn and then catalyze change from within. And again, to your point, looking at what's already there. and then asking permission for us to be able to scale it and learn and do more with it as communities give us permission to. So it's really this idea of honoring people and their way of life, and then of course looking at the gaps and looking at the ways they want to improve and they want to thrive in new ways.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the women of the community who one of their core sort of requests was like education.
Hmm.
So they know in their own communities what they have, what they don't have, what they need, what they're looking for. And that's a gap in a role that you have in Alabaster has really stepped into and filled, which again, I just think is so extremely important in all countries, but really underserved ones that need this type of effort. And
Hmm.
I know that you did a TEDx speech as well. Can you tell us about that? And was that focused on this particular bit of work? Tell us about your TEDx talk and kind of were you terrified getting on stage and give me the rundown.
Yes, thank you so much. TEDx was an extremely powerful experience. Shout out to TEDx Beverly Grove and Marvin Acuna, who was the producer of the TEDx. It was a terrifying experience. I mean, it's memorizing that many words and that many minutes of information and distilling our story down to 17 minutes is was quite a feat. And I'm so grateful for the coaching and all the folks that were involved in getting me there. And the story was really about NSET actually, and this idea of permission and proximity. So this looking at this as an example of how we can implement and leverage and catalyze change in communities because of working alongside and with co-dreaming and co-building with communities together, to see actual breakthrough in whether it's food or healthcare or other areas. But in this area, we're looking at food security, and so and this flipping the script on that communities want aid, and that's what they're looking for is just a short-term band-aid solution. And really communities want, and we know this from being 14 years on the ground, communities want to be able to grow their own food and be self-sustaining. They want that autonomy. They want to be able to say that they're proud of their farms, they're proud of what they're able to produce. And so it's this idea of looking at what's already within and then capacity building that in any ways communities would allow us to.
Yeah, and I absolutely would agree that most people do not want to just be given aid. You
Yeah.
know, it's truly the old adage, give a man a fish, feed him for a day,
Right.
give him, teach him how to fish, feed him for life.
Right.
And really, some of that comes from not the inability or the effort or lack of skill. It's a very harsh environment in
Mhm.
parts of Africa. It's not like going down south in the US where it's so wet and moist and great soil and you could grow everything.
Yeah.
You're in places there that really need drought resistant crops. And I meant to ask you, and since your TEDx talk was mainly about NSET, what exactly is NSET? Like what's its flavor, palette? What would you compare it to something here in the US? If there's even an equivalent.
Yeah, so NSAID is actually a banana-like crop. It's related to the banana tree, but it actually grows about like 8 or 9 feet tall. And it's actually not the fruit that you eat like we do the banana. The bark of the tree, because it gets so tall and actually quite wide, the bark of the trees actually eventually the sheaves of that are scraped off, and then it's shaved into a pulp. And the pulp is then dried and used as like an all-purpose flour. Essentially you can make pancakes or porridge or other things with the pulp that either is dried, or they actually sometimes ferment it and use the pulp in a wet form. And it has kind of a soury taste to it. I don't know if you ever had injera. Injera is the famous Ethiopian bread that you get a lot of Ethiopian restaurants in the US.
Yeah.
It has a similar taste to injera, a little bit more sour than that actually. And my husband is a chef, and so we actually cook with NSET pretty often, and we eat it because we're trying to get used to it as well as we're talking about it so much in our day to day. But yeah, it's really communities love it in Ethiopia. They eat it actually with their traditional spices, and then in Kenya, the women that we've introduced it to, they make the porridge out of it, and they love the porridge. It's very similar to a Kenyan porridge called uji. And so it's quite prolific across cultures. So yeah, that's a little bit about the crop and how you eat it and how it tastes.
Yeah, you don't typically see that at your local grocery store here. So I'm
No,
glad you
no.
gave me a little rundown on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, and now you mentioned it, 14 years on the ground with Alabaster International. So you're in the four communities. You're in Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Sri Lanka. What's on the horizon for Alabaster International? What sort of growth are you expecting? Are there other communities, countries you're looking to expand into, or is it just kind of go with the wind and see how it grows organically?
Yeah, great question. So I would say there's three big things on the horizon for us right now. The first is NSET. We've been working on NSET for 3 years now, and we have proven its viability, its acceptability, that it can grow outside of Ethiopia for the first time in history. It's drought tolerant, it's climate resilient, it's nutritious. So now our aim is to get NSET seedlings into the hands of marginalized female farmers so they can grow it as food. That is our sole focus when it comes to NSET. So whether that's in parts of Ethiopia that actually don't yet grow NSET yet, especially in the north, and then in parts of Kenya, obviously, that are new to NSET that we want to scale it to. So that's really what we're focusing on with the NSET project is we're going from kind of the R&D stage of it into the community impact and looking at how farmers can actually grow it for food and even economic livelihood, selling the seedlings or the paste or crafts that you can make from the NSET byproducts. And then the second thing is our work in South Sudan. So right now, we've been working in South Sudan for 4 years, and we have a robust educational program there called Roots and Wings. So we are focused right now on impacting more and more students across South Sudan, getting them access to essential school supplies, launching tree planting initiatives, building libraries. And right now we're in 3 schools and we're expanding to 40 schools throughout Lear, South Sudan. So we're caring for about 10,000 children per year, and we want to expand that to 20,000 and more as we launched more schools in the program. So that's a big thing that's coming our way as well. And then the third thing is we have a gala coming up September 12th in Costa Mesa, California. So we're preparing for that, and we're kind of flipping the script on what galas look like. It's going to be an immersive cultural experience more so than just a sit down dinner. We want guests to really experience the culture, the beauty, the story, the art of the people that we have the privilege of knowing and serving alongside. So those are some of the big things on the horizon.
Those are big things indeed. And that kind of segues me into a question about the work Alabaster does. 40 schools, that ain't free. So how are you guys raising funds, and how can people get involved if they want to either make monetary donations or even become somebody that maybe does missionary work and goes to do some of this actual boots on the ground stuff? And then also, are you personally still doing a lot of trips to Kenya and South Sudan? Is that sort of a regular routine for you? But yeah, and how can people get involved and donate to this cause?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'll answer it backwards. So yes, we are still actively on the ground. Again, we believe in proximity. So we're on the ground in parts of Africa or Sri Lanka every 3 months or so. And we're actually, myself and my husband, we're actually relocating to be closer to the community. So we'll be relocating to Sri Lanka and Kenya. Actually, we'll be going back and forth between those two places at the end of this year. So we'll be there full time, still coming back to the United States to see our family and fundraise and things like that. So we are very, very close to the work. We're there all the time. We meet with our teams weekly, virtually as well. So we have a presence there, and we have local teams that continue the work when we're not there, that are Alabaster teams that partner with our local agencies that are on the ground. So that's our model is really focused on having proximity at all times to the work and the people we serve. And then I would say, yes, get involved. We love people to get involved in the work. We always like to say we love that we need people. We can't do this work alone. There are many ways to get involved. Yes, one way is to give, whether one time or monthly. You go to our website, alabasterinternational.org, and there's a way to donate one time online or join our Samama Circle, which is our monthly giving program. Samama means to stand in Swahili. So this idea that our monthly givers are taking a stand alongside us and the communities to really support them. So those are ways to give to the work. Of course, attending our gala if people are local. We'll have more information on our website in the next week or so for folks to consider. And then, yes, volunteering, whether stateside or coming on a trip with us. You also on our website, there's a volunteer form folks can fill out if you're interested in coming on a trip or learning more about our work that way. We like to be all open that our trips are very immersive, meaning we live amongst and we eat with and we live in communities themselves. So it can be you're exposed to the elements. Sometimes we're in camping mode when we're there because we don't want to take up too many resources. And so it's definitely an experience. Highly recommend. We take many, many teams on the ground throughout the 4 countries. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what a blessing and an experience that would be to be able to go and live amongst a tribe or a community like that for a while. I think that is such an awesome thing that you're doing. Again, guys, you can check out alabasterinternational.org. Look at making monetary donations, look at volunteering time, going to these events, the galas. That's what makes this all come together. But then, of course, you need the people like Shannon out there, boots on the ground, with the vision, the heart, and the mentality to put this together. It is truly an inspiration to learn about the work that you're doing. I'll make sure to share links to not only the website, you can find them on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'll link everywhere around this video when it comes out. Please, 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 if nothing else, follow, support, like, share their mission. This is doing such good in the world, and it has the potential to go so much further. We're talking 3 countries in Africa, 1 in Asia. There's 202 other countries out there. Maybe they don't all need NSET and these type of things, but to have this giving nature and this ability to learn from their communities around them and neighbors and grow together, that's what this show is all about. It's measuring what matters. And Shannon, I have to say, what you do really, really matters. And it's been an honor learning about Alabaster International, and really excited to continue watching this organization grow and learn more and more about how we can get involved. So is there anything that you would tell, someone listening in the audience to, about following their passion? Or like, for example, you were really wanting to be in med school, it didn't happen, and then look what came out of that sort of, I'm going to say, rejection, because I feel like this is such a greater calling of what you're doing anyways. Not that being in medical school is not a great calling, but you still get to do the medicine. So what's that one piece of advice you would tell somebody that feels like they just lost the one thing they've been working for?
Yeah, I would say the one thing I would share is that certainty is overrated. There is a gift. There is a gift when you're faced with the unknown. And instead of seeing that as a catastrophe or the devastation of all your dreams and hopes, it actually is an opportunity to lean in with wonder and curiosity. And so I would say, embrace uncertainty. I do so many things without fully knowing the outcome or knowing the next step. But as you take that first step, the next steps often reveal themselves. So I would say, doing it scared, doing it even when you're uncertain has been a motto and a theme in my own life and in the work. And it's really served to remind me to have a lens of gratitude and curiosity when things maybe go unexpectedly. Yeah.
Yeah, very well put. And as they kind of say, I think I'll butcher this, but it's like you find the path on the path, right? So you might have a vision of where you're going and what you want. And if it doesn't work out, that means something better is coming along the way. So I really appreciate, Shannon, the work you're doing and sharing it with our audience. Again, that's alabasterinternational.org. I would highly encourage you to get involved, at least read up on them, learn what they're doing. Maybe it'll inspire you to do some great in your community or where you came from originally. Just always keep your eyes out on how you can get involved with somebody, something, organizations bigger than yourself, because that's truly what life is all about. And it brings a lot of purpose to what we do, and helping communities creates this amazing legacy where we can help others thrive where they live. So my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really appreciate your time today on the Measuring Post.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. Thank you for your time, Joe.